Awusuafo ne ahwefo emu bi akobade ba Unidek TV so send the day kan obodi answer betumi emi subscribe button so no subscribe na for like na wetumi a share no wija comment was ne betumi.
You know, it's your boy Captain to the planet. I'm here to talk to you about Unidek TV. Please subscribe to Unidek TV. Subscribe. So right from day one, the state has to shoulder that bill. But even what we consume is woefully inadequate when you look at the billing or the approved tariff as against the cost of electricity. So if you do a one-on-one on a parity basis, there's a mess, and it ought to go to Parliament so that the people's representative can evaluate and assess what we do and determine whether they really want that contract or not.
Let's spend some time on this company that is making 3% of our gross collections. Do we know who owns this company?
I know the name of the company. The company is Hubtel, and I think that we should put it out there. There's no...
I see.
Once you get into public business, the company is Hubtel. I'm sure they are a profit-making entity. The problem is that those of us on the government side and ECG should have done a proper due diligence, value for money, and ensure that their interest is covered. So I don't even blame the private company. I think that the blame must go to the administration at that time, our negotiators, ECG, and the rest. What did they do? And I thought that the contract should have come to Parliament. For such a major contract, drastic, very draconian to deal with.
You know, I'm trying to figure out what the current administration wants to do about collection, because it would appear that is where, you know, we have the chunk of our problem. We've invested so much in meters, but this report is showing us that the prepaid metering is not giving us the money we want. It might be too late for us to go back and get the, you know, reinstall postpaid meters, right? Might be much more money, won't it?
I don't think the problem is even prepaid meters. I think there's a huge human element there.
Okay.
Even if you install prepaid meters, and you have people who come to tamper with the prepayment meters, people who do not ensure that the reading is done properly, you're still going to have that problem. PDS, with its terrible nature, appear to have done a bit better, except there is the corruption and the underhand dealings that created the problem. If we had done PDS and followed through with the roadmap that we developed, open, transparent, competitive process, let the best entity win it, and you set KPIs and monitor them, would have succeeded with PDS. But because people, through their own selfish interests, try to hijack the system, that is what created a problem. And so private sector participation is not that bad.
Which is what you're proposing.
And that is what we are proposing.
Where are we with, you know, involving private sector?
We've set up a 7-member committee to consult. They've consulted the labor unions, industry experts, civil society, academia, everybody who matters. What do we do? After that, we'll take a common position and go to cabinet and seek approval on the best way forward. When we do that, we'll appoint a transaction advisor, we'll appoint a technical committee, and then a financial advisor, and then we will launch a competitive bidding process. We'll place some emphasis on local content. We do not, unless it becomes something that all of you are pushing for, we do not as a government intend selling ECG. It's a strategic asset, but then we can still get private sector participation. And if we get it right, I'm sure that we can reduce the losses, we can improve the revenue collection, but also we want to address the inefficiencies with ECG itself in terms of its management of its own resources, i.e. how they spend the little that they get. When we do that, we'll make some very good progress. And I think that I want to encourage Ghanaians to support us. Let's give this a trial. Let's do it right. We are open for criticism. We are open for suggestions. We want to do the best that we can for this country. And I have no personal interest. Let me be very clear that in all this, myself, the president, this government, we have no personal parochial interest. Our objective is to put our best foot forward and do the best for
to December 2024. Just one company. What are you doing about that?
I intend that we do a review of that contract. Personally, I find that contract unfortunate. I've called for details on it. I've called for a presentation, and I asked them, why do you need this software? It hasn't led to revenue increase. It hasn't led to any revenue assurance. And yet this company is taking so much money. And if you recall, in the days of opposition, we were fighting this contract. We kept insisting that it should not be signed. In fact, the MD came and assured us, it's turned out that it is 3% of gross. And so even from information flow, we have a problem with that. That app was paid for by ECG, and yet ECG does not own that app. At the transition, they tried to migrate the whole system to that company. We're able to block it. And so all is not lost. I'm not against anybody. I have no problem with any company. I have no problem with any Ghanaian company. We want to ensure that there's value for money. We want to ensure that we do the right thing. We want to ensure that we protect the ordinary Ghanaian and the taxpayers' money. And so rest assured, we will tackle that issue. And we'll tackle that issue frontally and head on. I've briefed His Excellency the President, and has given me full approval and authorization to move full steam. And that's exactly what we intend to do.
Are these initial payments the only reasons that ECG is not able to meet its obligations to the cash waterfall mechanisms to our independent power producers?
Not just that. Because of the fall of the cedi and the exchange rate differentials, ECG's base in terms of monetary value has eroded significantly, because most of the IPPs and the power generators are paid in US dollars. And so anytime the currency fluctuates and devalues, it creates a huge problem. And so even if ECG were to collect 100% today, that is one. Two, the losses have increased. Their ATCC, what you call aggregate technical collection and commercial losses, now hovers around 40%. That is unacceptable. The IMF and the World Bank project that we should be increasing tariffs by about 58%. I mean, how you're going to increase tariffs by 58% is another major thing. And inefficiencies at ECG. The collection, the losses, and all those issues ought to be addressed.
Are you currently facing that pressure to increase electricity tariff?
When they did the analysis, it showed that there was a huge differential.
Okay.
One, we don't pay for what you would call capacity charges or redundancy. It's not part of the tariff. That has significant implications. I think they should have come to Parliament. And so we will look at it again. And I have even reached out to them. And the company indicates that there are certain clauses or certain conditions that if they are addressed, the rate can come down significantly. Yes.
I see. Now, I want you to explain to us the difference between this Hubtel software and the 20 legacy systems and the meter monitoring system also that are currently at play as far as ECG's operations are concerned. What's the difference really?
Honestly, I find some of them overlapping. I find some duplicity of roles. And I think that those are the issues we ought to be dealing with. And so without sounding judgmental, I hold the view that we do not need all those multiple so-called quality assurances. And that we can have a one-stop gap system that addresses all these challenges. And the Ghana Commercial Bank did a presentation. And I found that very, very interesting. I found their presentation very interesting because one is a state bank, the money stays here, their solution appears cheaper, and I think that without rushing to make conclusion, such a system and such an approach is worth considering. These are early days yet. We would have to engage everybody. The president has just set up an energy security committee chaired by the chief of staff, and that should tell you his vision of elevating the challenge at the highest level. And so we'll be meeting, I think, on Friday to give some initial directives, following which would make some progress as far as the whole energy system is concerned, including the petroleum sector.
So we have these duplicitous systems, over 20 legacy systems. I don't even know what those are. But one thing is clear from this report, that despite all this, the investments we have made in our metering system and all that, it's still not collecting as much as we want it to collect for us. And I'll give you an example. At the bottom of the report, or more like in the beginning of the report, it makes reference to Adora system. The Adora systems gives us a postpaid version and a prepaid version. Postpaid version, we didn't have a problem with collection, but prepaid, we seem to have a problem with collection. And we've invested all this money. We wasted our money, didn't we?
I agree with you. I agree with you because it's a cost-benefit analysis. So if you spend $2 to collect $1 in taxation system, then you better not collect it,
right,
unless you want to maintain a certain system. And so if it costs you so much to do a program, and at the end the benefit is less, then you better maintain the existing system. And so you had a system that was operational, you were making some collections, and say maybe it costs you 200, but you collect 1 billion. Now if you bring another system and you collect 1.1 billion, that might look like an improvement. But if it costs you 400, then you better keep your 200. Then those are the things that I think ECG ought to be doing. And so that's what we want to focus on. Bring about a high level of efficiency, cut waste, reduce losses, and trim them. And we intend to trim ECG. That one is non-negotiable.
What does trimming look like?
That's what I said. The wastage ought to be reduced. Okay. The unnecessary procurements ought to be reduced to the barest minimum. If you look at it's like there's a rush to engage in procurement. And so I've put a hold in all procurements now. And I've asked them that if they want to do essential procurement, they should write to the ministry until the board is reconstituted. And when the board is reconstituted, we shall provide them with policy guidelines on procurement, so that we ensure that they follow strict adherence. Because I asked myself, if this company were yours or it was yours, would you engage in this level of procurement? You go to their warehouse, a lot of the equipment are at the mercy of the weather. I just checked from the port, and the security report I'm getting is that a container that costs about $500,000 is imported. ECG is unable to clear that container. Some way, somehow, somebody is able to buy that container at auction for 100,000 cedis, bring it into the open market, and resell it to ECG as $300,000. It will stop. And I mean, it will stop. Whatever it takes to stop that, no matter how unpopular that might be, we have to take that decision and stop it. Either than that, the system will collapse. When it collapses, nobody would survive it. So we have to do something.
Abusuafoɔ ne ahwɛfoɔ emu bi akɔbɛ de ba Unidek TV so send that they adi kan a wɔbɛde answer betumi emi subscribe button no so no subscribe na for like na wetumi ahyɛ no wogya comment was ne betumi.
You know, it's your boy Captain to the Planet. I'm here to talk to you about Unidek TV. Please subscribe to Unidek TV. Subscribe.